Hello and welcome to Stretford Paddock. My name is Joe. This is the news, and today we'll be talking about bids. Manchester United obviously up for sale. We have seen the introduction of this new Premier League, what would you call it? Rules, new body, new sort of sanctions available to the Premier League that can punish ownerships for any atrocities, any human rights abuses that those owners commit can therefore be punished and punished sort of through the footballing system, which is obviously a new system that we've seen over the last few days. How does that relate to Manchester United? We'll be getting into that today. We'll be looking at whether this means there are issues around the Qatar bid. Obviously, heavy links to the Qatar royal family, the Qatar ruling family, as well with Sheikh Jassim bidding for Manchester United. We will see how all of that will pan out. But first of all, get in the comments. Let us know your thoughts on all of this. Do you think there will be any issues for Manchester United? Do you care? Do you believe that this is all a little bit of smoke and mirrors? Is this a political ploy by the British government to have some level of geopolitical power across the footballing landscape? We'll be getting into all that. We've got to detail it. We've got to get through it. We've got to give you the news as it happens. And this is obviously the 31st of March. And hit the like button, please. It's Friday after all, isn't it? Right, big sip. And away we go. First of all, Premier League announces changes and owners that will face disqualification for human rights abuses under changes to the new owners and directors test. Again, like we've said, we've seen here that the Premier League have announced that the clubs have unanimously approved the proposal changes at the shareholders meeting on Thursday. I'd love to know how they got Newcastle to unanimously approve that, by the way. They were like, lads, 19 of us are up for this. City weren't so sure, but they think they've got a loophole, as they always do. If you are the only ones who don't agree with this, it's going to look really bad when they go, what do you mean? Human rights abusers? What are you on about, Jamal Khashoggi? What do you, I mean, we love all that stuff. Yeah, we'll agree to it. It would look really bad, wouldn't it, if Newcastle were sat there going, nah, everyone else likes this, but we're not up for it. So it was unanimously agreed upon. Among the disqualifying events added are individuals and companies subject to government sanctions and human rights abuses based on the global human rights sanctions regulations of 2020. The former Chelsea owner Roman Abramovich had to sell the club last year after it had emerged that he had supplied steel to the Russian military to produce tanks for their war in Ukraine. Abramovich has never condemned Russia's invasion. The Premier League announcement comes after Sheikh Jassim bin Hamad Al Thani and Sir Jim Ratcliffe submitted bids to buy Manchester United as the Glazers family consider the possibility of ending their 18-year ownership. Sheikh Jassim hails from Qatar, which has widely been criticised for its human rights record. Homosexuality is still outlawed in the Gulf state. Manchester City were taken over by the Abu Dhabi Group in 2008, while the Public Investment Fund, PIF, of Saudi Arabia took control of Newcastle in 2021. On Monday, the Premier League chief executive, Richard Masters, refused to confirm whether the organisation is investigating Newcastle's Saudi ownership after documents submitted to a US court on behalf of the PIF said it should be considered a foreign state. The Premier League allowed the takeover to proceed on the assurance that the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia will not control Newcastle. Well, that's that then, isn't it? And that is where this whole thing falls down. And I think we can have a look at Simon Stone's tweet where he's been speaking about this, about the bid. Being stressed that Sheikh Jassim's bid for Man United is being made as a private individual and therefore no issues are expected, re Premier League statement around owners and directors. So what is the point in this? What is the point? If we are being told, and at a legal level, Newcastle are not owned by the Saudi government. If we are being told, and at a legal level, Manchester United are not owned by the Saudi royal family, if we are believing that, if we are taking this shit at face value, then what is the point in this? Unless, literally, the king of a country is sat in the stands with a little Newcastle flag, there is always going to be a loophole. At the minute, Qatar already own PSG, but that's allowed because we're finding loopholes. Like, what is the point in this? Any of these big businesses, any of these powerful people, and we keep stressing this, but these blokes like Sheikh Jassim and his family are not just like a rich bloke that you went to school with who did well in tech sales. He is one of the most powerful men on earth. His family's value, his net worth, is between 250 billion and 1 trillion. No one even knows how much money they've got because it's not even like business money. It's like other world money. So obviously these people have loopholes. The richest, most powerful people on earth find a way to sort of sneak through the rules. What is the point in this? It will not catch anyone. How stupid do you have to be to have the power to commit atrocities and human rights abuses on a governmental and political scale, but not be smart enough to get round these most basic of rules? It is literally a sham. This rule will not change anything. Like the fit and proper persons rules that already let the owners of Bury and Portsmouth and whoever else come in, take the piss out of the club. Sheffield Wednesday's another one who's having bans because they sold their stadium to their own owner. All of these things that have taken place under the current rules of fit and proper owners tests will only carry on because anyone who's got this amount of money, whether they're British, American, Qatari, Saudi, whoever it is obviously going to be able to navigate around these rules. It's just ridiculous. You know, this is obviously nothing to do with who these people are. It is if you even have the power to commit what's the word that they're saying? So if we go back to the article there, human rights. What is it? Human rights breaches, I believe is the term that's being used. Human rights abuses. If you're committing human rights abuses, you can obviously convince the Premier League that you are not acting on behalf of a government. That is so obvious. So I don't see how this is going to work. I don't see how this is going to help anyone. I don't see how this is going to protect clubs. I don't see how this is going to help those people who those human rights abuses are happening against. To me, it's all just a bit of look at the Premier League acting all tough, look at the government acting as though we're doing something when they've allowed dozens of owners, not just human rights based issues, but just financial issues like we saw with Bury. And I think, wasn't it legally the case that they were owned by about 12 clubs in 6 months, 12 owners in 6 months or something, because maybe that was Portsmouth, excuse me. Because basically the owners just kept giving it to a different shell company that they owned. And you think, you've not done a good job. The Football League and the Premier League have not really done any sort of job in stopping owners own football clubs. The only one that's of a high profile is Roman Abramovich, who they kicked out. But should he have been allowed in the first place? Anyway, it's all just ridiculous, isn't it? Jamie Wayne says, strange how this rule is only coming in now because we're trying to get bought. Jamie, honestly, like Simon Stone said, I would not expect this to affect Manchester United whatsoever. This rule, like I said, is I think designed to make the Premier League and the government look as though they're trying to do something. If anything, the timing of this rule and the fact that it still doesn't affect Man United's new ownership shows you exactly how little this rule and these new sanctions will do for football. I don't think they're going to help anyone, and I don't think they'll protect anyone. Anyway, there you go. Yeah, say something, do nothing politics. That's exactly what this is, yeah. And it's not even the case of necessarily having to do that much, but why pretend that you're trying to do something? I wish the Premier League would just come out and say, if the money's there, we will sell the club to anyone. Because basically that's the situation we're in. But instead they pretend that there are these checks and these balances and these tests. There isn't. And anyone that's competent enough to have 100-odd billion pounds in the bank account can pretty swiftly navigate around these very limited and supposedly strenuous, however, clearly in practice, easy to sort of trick rules. So yeah, I'm not particularly impressed by this, and I don't think it's going to help or change anything. Alpha Omega says, I've been hearing the argument we don't want to be state-owned, like being owned by the state of Iceland is as bad as being owned by Qatar. This is a dark day. I mean, that's your opinion, isn't it? I don't want to be owned by... To be honest, I want to own Man United and I don't want anyone else to own it. I think being fan-owned is obviously the ideal thing for most people. But unfortunately, as we've said on this channel before, football clubs are worth too much money, and the average person, you would need billions of us to put in a few quid each, or certainly hundreds of millions of us to put in a few quid each, and I don't think there are enough Manchester United fans with the money available to do that. Hey, can we have a recap, please? We're only about 5 minutes in, so just scroll to the start and have a little look. But yeah, the Premier League have brought in new rules which supposedly will stop clubs being bought by regimes and states that have human rights atrocities associated with them. However, I think it's pretty plain to see that isn't necessarily the case. Ant L says, might help if Kim Jong-un tried to buy us. I think that is literally it. I think if Kim Jong-un or Vladimir Putin himself came to Old Trafford and were like, yeah, we'll have this, they might go, I'll just have a look. Kim Jong-un, go on then, but be careful. Like, that is how much the Premier League are actually doing here. Go on, Kim, but don't mess about with it. Don't, I know you've got those camps in your country where you send people if they dissent, but, treat Man United well. I don't think it would even make a difference. However, as we've seen there, just back to Simon Stone a second, this will not affect the bid of Sheikh Jassim. There are no issues expected. Read the Premier League statements around owners and directors today. That's because his bid is being made as a private individual. It's interesting, isn't it, that concept that it's been made as a private individual? Because if you Google Sheikh Jassim's net worth, which I know Google isn't everything, but it's where we get our figures on Jim Radcliffe's net worth from, which everyone is more than happy to sort of, spout around $23 million, $28 million, somewhere in that region that we've seen over the last few years. Sheikh Jassim's net worth, personally, according to the internet, is $1.1 billion, which is obviously nowhere near enough to buy Man United. People say that the $23 billion that Jim Radcliffe is worth isn't enough to buy Manchester United at 5 or 6 billion, because obviously you need, you can't just put all of your money in, because then you've got no money left. So I wonder where the rest of Sheikh Jassim's money is coming from. I wonder if there's a little help from his family, which obviously legally isn't the case. And like I said, they're being stressed that this bid is being made by a private individual, but the numbers don't really add up. So we'll see. But yeah, don't expect this to get in the way of Qatar's potential ownership of Manchester United. If they are to be the preferred bidder by the Glazers, there will still be more than enough opportunity for them to sort of circumnavigate these new Premier League rules, and they'll own Manchester United should the Glazers choose to sell to them. So there we go. Joe. It's all just performative nonsense, innit? It's all just like, let's pretend to care. Premier League rules, all this, all that. None of it matters, does it? They're going to own United if they want to. Right, let's move on, shall we? From sort of irrelevant news to bad news. Manchester United Premier League club owe almost £1 billion. Look at that. We've almost hit the big 1 billion, guys, just before the Glazers leave. Way! What is this? Manchester United owe £969 million. Through a combination of gross debt, bank borrowings and outstanding transfer fees with associated payments according to new figures. Do you remember 18 months ago when we sat here and all of us sat on social media and went, ha ha ha, Barcelona, you're in £1 billion debt, how are you going to lever your way out of this shit? That's us now. We have got £1 billion worth of debt. The club released their second quarter results to the 31st of December, obviously 31st of December on Thursday. I guess that's of last year. Unlike previous years, there was no investors' call as a result of the ongoing strategic review. This could lead to a sale of the Premier League club, we know that. The review itself is centred on how to meet the club's long-term... I don't need to know that. Nevertheless, the amount owed at the club has grown. There you go. While the principal debt remains at $650 million, that's it. Just a sort of snip at $650 million. We've all got that in our bank accounts. A change in the exchange rate meant that the club owed $537 million compared to the £477 million at the same point previous year. That's because we were slightly fortunate, I think, that that would mean the pound had gone down. Anyway, in addition, £206 million has been taken from a rolling credit facility with another £227 million owed in outstanding transfer fees. The club did have £31 million cash or equivalent. Oh, that's all right then. I love that. The club did have £31 million in cash. Oh, great. Sorry, what do we owe again? Let me just get my cash out. What do we owe? $1 billion? Ah, right. Well, I've got 31 million. Will you take that? Now that is bartering, isn't it? Imagine going to the bank and they say that you owe me £1 billion, and you go, right. Have I got £1 billion? Great question. No, I have got 31 million quid. which is around 1/30 of what you're asking for. Will that do? And the bank goes, yes, that's fine. Just stay in debt for another 18 years. BBC Sport has been told the figures are evidence of a stretched financial situation, although it's been stressed that this has already changed for the better. Oh, great. Due to the bumper matchday revenues and impressive season ticket sales. Look at that. Yes. Admittedly, we have absolutely shat this club's money up the wall. We have borrowed out of our eyeballs. We have put one of the greatest institutions in football into £1 billion worth of debt. But luckily, the fan base that we have absolutely ignored and battered for nearly 20 years is propping us up with their season tickets and their matchday revenue. Thank you very much. Well done to the Glazers, who are absolutely putting every single saddlebag on the side of the buckaroo that is the Manchester United fan base. Well done. Yeah, we've got £1 billion worth of debt, but the fans keep turning up anyway. Unbelievable. Just taking the absolute piss. Anyway, indeed, posting profits of £6 million for the quarter, United have revealed that the sponsorship revenue has increased 43% from 50 to 50 million quid over the prior quarter. The club has said it was due to the impact of their training kit agreement with Tezos, plus a one-off sponsorship credit. What does that mean? Which they have opted not to detail. Wages were down 20 million, a decrease of 20.9% as Ten Hag's team were not in this season's Champions League. Look at that! I've only just read that. Hey, good news and bad news. The good news is wages are down 20%. That's really good. You've cut back on some money. Well done. You've saved a bit of money. The bad news is they're all contractual agreements because everyone's wages got cut by 1/5 because we didn't get into the Champions League. Right. Okay. So, yes, we have to play in the Europa League, but everyone's a little bit cheaper. So, really is fucking the shittest of swings and roundabouts, that, innit? Wages are down, but it's because we didn't qualify for the Champions League. Oh, God. What an absolute breath of fresh arse that is. Oh, yeah, take a breath, Joe. Thanks, Stuart. I will do. Sorry, I just got a little bit carried away there. I love that. Absolutely love that. Wages are down. Great. That's really good. Saving money on wages. Yeah, it's because we didn't qualify for the Champions League. Zero Quality says the Glazers are the definition of mismanagement. That's true. And Ant L says, to be fair, though, we could get a nice 800 million quid shirt sponsor coming very, very soon. Yeah, that's possible. We saw what Man City achieved. But we'll have to see. The fans have been taken for mugs by the Glazers. Yeah, absolutely. And it's not our fault. And it's not your fault if you want to go to a game or if you want to buy a kit, if you want to buy a shirt. It shouldn't be the case that you aren't allowed to support your club in every way you want to because the owners are so parasitic that it is associated with helping them. The fact that they have done that to this fan base is absolutely disgusting. Like, you should be able to own a United kit without feeling guilty. Do you know what I mean? It's just crap that you have to go, I didn't want to buy this kit because it helps the Glazers out. But you should be able to. You should be able to own a shirt for the team you support without feeling guilty because the money's going to dickheads. And I hate that they've done that, actually. Anyway, that's enough from me. Enough ranting this morning, but like I said, there's no good news. There's just bad news and irrelevant news. So thank you for joining us this morning. We'll be back later on today with The Brew. It's going to be Stephen Howson, Jay Motti and myself on that 4 o'clock live. We'll also be back tomorrow with the preview. And then, of course, Sunday, build up to the Newcastle game. And also, if you remember, we'll be getting this posted out today. If you remember, we'll be having a brand new player ratings section at the end of our review. And it's exclusive to members for now while we're testing it out, running through some of the details. So check out the community section later on today where we'll give you the code so you can sign in. You can get your player ratings as soon as that Newcastle game is finished, and we'll be going through them on the review. So if you remember, make sure you check that out. And if you aren't a member, click the join button and you can be part, obviously, of that player ratings review at the end of the Newcastle game. Thank you for joining us. Hit subscribe if you haven't already, and we'll see you in a bit.